Welcome back to the Flight Simulator First Officer channel. Today we're going to be going over some new features and fixes that are included in version 1.2.3.0. As you can see, the list is extensive and primarily focuses on the fly-by-wire A320, Phoenix A320, and PMDG 737. It also includes full support for the Captain Sim 777, which works much the same as the Salty 747, and this, of course, is free. A couple other things I'd like to take note is the transition altitude, always registering 18,000 feet, has also been fixed. That was a blunder on my behalf where I simply named the file extension where that data is kept incorrectly. So fixed in this one. I'd also like to thank Mr. Ferguson and Toby, who were kind enough to record their own voices and provide us some additional sound packs that you can choose from. One is named English 3 and the other one is German 2. Both are excellent quality, so I encourage you to check them. One thing you can always count, actually two things you can always count on with FSFO, it will never be artificial intelligence, 100% AI. That is easy to do. Trust me, it's tempting to do because you can generate all the sounds you need in literally a few minutes, as opposed to taking hours to record and edit. But I will never go that route. I will also never leave a product defunct. For example, the fly-by-wire A320 is under constant update. FSFO will continue to be updated to ensure that it's compatible with the developmental version of the A320. That includes the Phoenix and the PMDG and every aircraft that I create a profile for here on out. Okay, so with that in mind and out of the way, let's go ahead and provide some practical demonstrations or showcase some of these new features. And I'd like to start in the configuration standard operating procedure menu. As you can see, a new policy has been created. It's called seatbelt policy. And what there are three options here. One is manual. Obviously, that will indicate that the captain will choose to manually choose when to turn on and off the seatbelt sign. 10,000 feet. Once you pass 10,000 feet on the climb out, the co-pilot will go ahead and automatically turn off the seatbelt signs, and then he will turn them back on when you pass 10,000 feet on the descent and approach. Similarly, the top of climb, top of descent works the same. Once you reach the top of the climb, the co-pilot will turn off the seatbelt sign, and the co-pilot will turn it back on once you reach top of descent. Now, a couple of things about this. You'll also hear a flight attendant message in the background saying the captain has turned on off the seatbelt sign. You're free to get up and move about the cabin, such and such. But one disclaimer here. Right now, Microsoft Flight Simulator doesn't provide any data as it relates to turbulence. So if you're in a high turbulence area, FSFO will not know that and will go ahead and turn off your seatbelt signs. However, today it's going to be smooth sailing. So I have 10,000 feet to kind of showcase this in our practical flight. Moving on to the advanced option, there are 4 new advanced options for you to choose from. One is the call flap setting. So what this is, if you set this to 0, the co-pilot will not call any flap changes. Now, this is useful for individuals who like to control their flaps via hardware. What's happening is as that lever traverses the axis, it would send a whole bunch of different values to FSFO, which it would interpret as changes in the flap settings, and you'd get a whole bunch of erroneous flap calls. So setting this to 0 will go ahead and eliminate that. Override managed flaps on approach. As you know, FSFO has an option where it can manage your flaps when you're in button mode. Button mode is anytime you're not using the microphone or speech recognition. So when this is red, to manage your flaps on takeoff and approach. What this option does, if you set it to 1, FSFO will only manage your flaps on the takeoff portion and will not touch them on approach. Play boarding sound. This version includes a PAX and cargo simulation. So once you load the passengers, you'll hear some ambiance noise in the background, such as seatbelts clicking, overhead bins clicking, cell phones beeping, just general noises for passengers. If you don't want to hear that sound because you're using another program, just set this to 0. Call B2. Several airliners do not require the co-pilot to call out B2. So you can simply set this to 0 and your co-pilot will not call B2 during the takeoff roll. So that's the advanced options. Moving on down to the sim brief, you'll now see that it also includes a PAC simulation. And what this is, there are now 6 options here. The first is the Automate Flight Services. So what this is Automate Flight Services is FSFO will automatically start loading the passengers for you. It will automate the snack service, automate the meal service, such and such, such. If you choose to use automated services, the packs will begin boarding once you establish power and using this slider right here. So right now it's set to 4 minutes. So between 3 and 5 minutes, once you establish power during the pre-flight flow, FSFO will automatically start loading the passengers for you. If you want more time during the pre-flight flow, just slide it to the right. If you want left, slide it to the left. So boarding time, what this is this dictates how long it will take to board the passengers. So if you slide it, as you can see here, we're in the PMDG 737. It takes anywhere between 25 to 40 minutes to fully board this aircraft. I apologize for that. One of the kids came in and needed something. So let's resume. So what this is PAX boarding. We're in a PMDG 737. And as you can see, it takes between 25 and 40 minutes to load this aircraft. So sliding this to the right will increase that time. Left to the will make it instant. I have it set right in the middle, so anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes, this will board. Same with cabin service time. What this does, it's the amount of time it takes the flight attendants to complete their cabin services, whether it be snacks or meals. Sliding it to the right, more realistic. Left is instant. I prefer cargo flight, so I like to simulate as realistic as possible. So that's why I have this set more to the right. It should take dang near an hour to unload for example, even a 737. It's time consuming. So that's the PAX simulations that we'll provide a demonstration for here very, very soon. One other note, if you prefer to do a manual, you would just click this to 0, or excuse me, click this to off. And what this would do is it would then use these buttons. So to load your passengers, you would click this button whenever you're ready. This is cargo. You can't do both. It's either a passenger flight or a cargo flight. So if you're flying a cargo flight, just go ahead and indicate this is a cargo flight by moving this over to the on position, and then you can click this button when you're ready to load your cargo. This is the passenger manifest. Once the passengers are loaded, you click this, and you'll see a list of names and ages here. In the next release, each one of these passengers will have a rating to indicate how well you're flying the flight. This right here is to start serving them meal services. Click it once and they'll click click it once and it will be a snack service. Click it again, it will be a meal service. Click it a third time, snack service. Click it a fourth time, a meal service for really long flights. This is the seatbelt sign. Click it once and it'll click on, click it again, click off. That's if you choose to use the manual feature right here for the seatbelt policy. Right now, these do not have consequences. In the next release, they will. If you don't feed your passengers, for example, on a flight that's 6 hours long, it will have negative impact on those ratings. A couple other notes I want to make. Once you start loading the passengers, you can just click the button again, whether it's cargo or cargo simulations, and you'll see it will load those within less than a minute, regardless of what setting you have within the PAX and cargo loading times. Another feature is you can now switch, just toggle buttons if you want the pushback control. That's what this button does right here, swaps it back and forth. Another, I wanted to kind of make you aware, if you choose to use the PAX in the cargo simulation, those are predicated on these two values right here. So if you're running a passenger simulation, you have to have more than 2 PAX listed here. These are both downloaded from SimBrief. So if you generate a SimBrief flight plan and you have it set to automatically download it, these should automatically be set. Cargo has to be more than 1,000 pounds for you to generate a cargo flight. So that's this. And while we're here, we're going to go ahead and just set our performance data for the flight, and we'll go ahead and demonstrate this in a practical example. It's a vectored approach. I know flaps at 10. I know my performance data because I looked it up in TopCap prior to this video. All right, so with the performance data set, I'm going to go ahead and change this to an autoflow, and then the copilots will start to enter the cockpit. And I'm going to go ahead and speed this up, and the copilot will initiate his safety check. I always like to check to make sure this is working by setting things that shouldn't be incorrectly, and then seeing if he goes ahead and flips them to the correct settings, just for your demonstration. There you go. Flaps are up, and your fuel control switches are turned off. Safety check is working, and now we're going to get into the power. So one other note here, as you can see, the time duration, I would recommend letting these go to their full duration. So aircraft like the PMDG 737 attempt to mimic the real-world aircraft, and it takes time for a 737 to energize and perform its internal self-test. So if you get out of sequence by hitting Control-Alt or this or any other time delay, you can find yourself running into problems just like the real aircraft. Don't get ahead of the aircraft. Let it do its thing, and then you should be okay. So what's going to happen now is he's waiting for the aircraft to energize, and then you should see him manipulate his FMC down here to request the ground power unit. And that's all predicated, again, on this setting right here, startup power source equals GPU. You could set this to APU. In the prior edition, there was an error. So what would happen is you would set this to APU. The copilot would go ahead and set the APU during the pre-flight flow, but then he would run the APU fire test, which would stop the APU, and you would lose power. That's corrected in this version. So if you choose to have the APU as the power-up source, you can now do so without consequences. You'll also note that there are a number of system tests. Again, that's predicated on this list, or this option right here, no power equals system test. I have this set to yes. So when the copilot entered the cockpit, he saw it was in a cold and dark state, and he's going to assume it's the first flight of the day. So why that's relevant is because now FSFO has a turnaround feature. So once I land at the destination airport, this block right here will turn state turnaround. So once you unload all your passengers and you run your shutdown checklist, you can hit the turnaround button. It will reset all the internal values within FSFO. And then when you run the pre-flight flow again, it will be very much abbreviated based on the company's turnaround flow. So very abbreviated turnaround ops are here. So you can see now he's running the fire test. And another thing I want to take note of, while the pilot just went ahead and he set the IRSs. As you can see, the nav. If these are not set correctly, for example, if they are set to ATT, please have a look at the FSFO troubleshooting thread on the forum. What you want to look at is right here. The copilot does not set switches, PMDG nav. There's probably an issue with your LVAR, or you switched aircraft without restarting FSFO, or you reset Microsoft Flight Simulator. LVARs are very finicky, so they can get out of whack here pretty quickly, and that's why you have your problem. But as you can see, FSFO sets them correctly if it's able to read your LVARs without issue. All right, let's go ahead and get back into the. You have to excuse me, I don't have any of my. Let's go to pilot. There we go. I just wanted to take a minute to show you that. And let's see if we can switch smart cameras. We'll just reset it. There we go. So now FSFO is performing, or Copilot is performing, the autopilot disconnect test, which has just been completed. And now he's going to program the FMS for you. What he's doing essentially is he's just entering a route that you downloaded from SimBrief. You must download a flight plan from SimBrief, or you can even use PFPX if you're still using that application, as long as the flight plan is in the PMDG work folder. Remember, do not use numeric values when you create your flight plan. It should be just, in this case, it's KBGR to Cape Boston. So as you can see, your copilot is also entering the fuel amount, and he's going to enter the payload amount. He's getting this data from SimBrief. So if you create a SimBrief flight plan, your copilot can even go ahead and set the fuel and payload parameters for you. And that is based on an advanced option right here, load fuel and payload.
Walk around.
Load fuel and payload for PMDG aircraft, that's set to 1. Okay, so the copilot is on the walk around, and what he did before leaving is he set your FMC to the departure and approach index page. So there are still some things you have to do as the pilot, even when you have told the copilot to go ahead and program the FMC, and you do that through the option right here, set FMC during pre-flight. You will still be required to enter your the runway and your SIDS and your star. So that's why he sets that to this page here, just to remind you that that's still your responsibility. And I'm going to take runway 22 left, and I'm not going to use the star today. It'd be a vectored approach. Then we're going to go ahead and look at our legs and clear any discontinuities, and we look good here. So you remember the pack simulation, we had it set to auto. So as you can see, the boarding is in progress. And you can also hear the ambiance music that's now playing in the background. I have this coming through my speaker of the passengers starting to board the aircraft. That's again all predicated on what we had talked about earlier. The boarding is down here, and if you wanted to speed that up again, you could simply move those sliders that we talked about earlier. So with that kind of display, we're going to kind of hurry this along. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to press this button again, and you're going to see this now in rapid succession if you don't wish to wait. And it's going to just tell you loading operation sequence. Would you like to complete them now? Yes. And then you'll see this come down here, and then you'll hear the cockpit door shut, and then the ambiance music will stop. There we go. And then in a few seconds, you should hear the...
Captain, all passengers are aboard. We should have everyone seated in the next 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay. So now the manifest is available. You can click on that here, and you can see everyone that is boarded onto your aircraft. Again, in the next version, each one of these individuals will have a name associated with it, or excuse me, a rating associated with it that dictates how well you're flying. Okay, so let's go ahead and terminate the walk around here early, and then you're going to see the co-pilot come in. And he's going to go ahead and he's going to set the FMS performance data. And again, that's based on another advanced option. FSFO is highly configurable. So what it is you can see that captain, program, init, and pref data is set to 0, which means the co-pilot can do it. Well, you're instructing the co-pilot to do it for you. All this data is coming from SimBrief, with the exception of the data that we entered earlier into the performance data. So for example, I told it I wanted takeoff 2. I told it flaps 10 and the temperature is 48. So you saw him enter all that. You see flaps 10 here, and then the feed speeds are set. So there's the performance data all set. Then he's going to just check his pages real quick to make sure the data is accurate. And then he's going to go back up to the overhead panel and work in the flow pattern, working down from the panels. With the yaw damper going on, fuel pumps off, electrical panel, just working in that flow pattern that's recommended by the manufacturer. There you go. Emergency exit lights are on, seatbelt signs came on. Probe heat is now, window heat is now on. Anti-ice panel is good. Packs are coming on. And then working our way down, auto brakes over to RTO, and then the MCP. So this has been fixed. I know we had some problems in the previous versions reading the speeds and the headings, but as you can see, the only one that's still left to fix is this guy right here, altitude. It's still off by 1. I'll hopefully be able to get that fixed in the next release, but 100% of the time now for course, speed, and heading. And I expect I'll be able to fix this guy soon here too. Without an SDK, there's just a lot of, let's use guessing. There's a lot of guessing and testing just to see if if we can get that to work. Now, another feature, and it takes 75 seconds here to run the GPWS test.
Wind shear, wind shear,
Again, so when you do the turnaround ops, these tests are not required. They're just the end of the first flight of the day test. So a very much abbreviated pre-flight flow on
Don't sink.
when you turn
Don't
around.
Sink. Too low. Terrain. Too low. Gear. Too low. Flaps. Too low. Terrain. Glide slow.
Okay, just running through. So again, you're going to see after the GPWS test, you're going to see the program is the copilot is going to set your HUD based on the data, the runway information that you put in the performance page. This is another advanced option that is set right here, and it's called. You just give me a second. Copilot programs HES is set to 1. So for the PMDG 737 and the Aerosoft CRJ, they both have HUDs. If that's set to 1, your copilot will go ahead and program that on takeoff and then again on the descent. So the runway here at Bangor, the length is 1,144 feet. You should see him program that. There he goes. And I think the elevation is right around 178. And there you go. So the HUD is now set, and he will again do that on the descent for you. Setting the transponder. And there we go. So let's go ahead and run the pre-flight checklist. And we'll use button mode.
Pre-flight checklist.
What I'm going to do...
Tested.
Navigation, transfer, and display switches.
Normal and auto.
Window heat.
On.
Pressurization mode selector.
Auto.
Flight instruments.
Okay, so flight instruments, everything looks good. So I'm going to hold Control-Alt.
Heading set, altimeter set.
Parking brake.
So unfortunately, in this version of the PMDG 737, you have to hold the toe brakes and then set the parking brake on.
Set.
Fuel control switches.
Cut off.
Checklist complete.
Okay, so as you see with the parking brake, if you're in button mode and you run a checklist, FSFO will wait for your setting to be correct before it moves to the next item. So it waited until I set the parking brake before moving to the next item. Okay, as you can see, the copilot went ahead and set his FMC to the door page. That reminds you to close the door, and then since we're in auto mode, once all the doors are shut, the before start flow should happen within the 5 to 10 seconds after the door is closed. And here we go. And so now we're going to start the APU. Again, the 737 needs to bleed air from the APU to perform the engine start. So we'll wait here for the EGT to rise. Again, please let the time elapse. Again, sophisticated simulations that mimic the real-world aircraft, it takes time for the APU, which is nothing more than a small jet engine, to spool up. So what's going to happen is once this gets to the appropriate temperature, you'll see the copilot will go ahead and transfer power from the APU or GPU generators to the APU generator. And you'll notice he turned on the fuel pump. When the APU is running, it requires the forward fuel pump on engine 1 to be turned on. So after the copilot, well, there we go. So we see the bus is now available, and you'll see the copilot here. We are now on the APU generator, not on the GPU. The copilot will even come down here, and he will, excuse me. So fuel pumps went on. The center fuel pumps are off because there's no air in no fuel in the center fuel tanks. Packs went off. Those are required to become off to start the engine. As you can see, disconnected the GPU for you, and he will even remove the wheel chocks. And this is, by the way, why it takes quite a bit of time to program a copilot for FSFO, because he will literally do everything for you. Okay, so this is the correct configuration. The copilot's page should be on. Excuse me. Your page should be on performance, and his page should be on legs. He'll set it to the legs during the after start flow. We're just waiting for the message to play.
The cabin crew will be passing to make their final safety checks before departure.
Again, I am still the pilot in command, so I will check. I always check the data to make sure that the co-pilot entered it correctly, and it looks like he did here. As you can say, we said we wanted a takeoff temperature 48. We wanted a D rate of takeoff in times R2, which is he set that all correctly. As the pilot in command, it is your job to make sure that all those are set correctly. So make sure you do so. I'm going to go ahead and just set the takeoff to 5.21, and then we'll run the before start checklist. And again, I want to demonstrate how the checklist works. I tried to do that with the window hitting, but I wasn't quick enough on the last one. So here we go.
Before start checklist.
I'll do that
Flight
later,
deck
actually.
door.
Closed and locked.
Fuel 14086 pounds.
Checked.
Passenger signs.
Set.
MCP. Speed 125. Heading 330. Altitude 8000.
Checked.
Takeoff speeds V1 122. VR 122. V2 125.
Set.
CDU preflight.
Completed.
Rudder and aileron trim.
Free and zero.
Taxi and takeoff briefing.
Completed.
Anti-collision lights.
On.
Checklist complete.
Okay, there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and pause it here. I don't like the delay that it took to read back the MCP speed, so I'm going to fix that right now so I don't have to make a note. You'll notice you can now 100% read all the values in the MCP with this version, which is different than the previous. So finally got that ironed out. I'll be right back. Again, I want to fix that slight delay in the caller to the V speeds. Okay, so that's been fixed. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and demonstrate the pushback feature. Swap the buttons here, start the pushback, and then we're going to push with the nose to the left. And FSFO should go ahead and disconnect the
from cockpit.
The jet bridge.
Go ahead.
We're ready for pushback.
Connecting tug. I'll let you know when the pin is inserted.
All right, so there you go. The tug will now move into position, and then once the pin is inserted, you will go ahead and remove the pin. Now, a couple of notes on the pushback. This is from the user's perspective, not from the tug perspective. So that's how I prefer to do it, as there's a lot of novice to FSFO, and it just makes sense that this would move the nose to the left, and this would move it to the right based on the perspective from the viewer, not from the cart. So not going to change these.
Steering inserted. Release parking brake.
Okay, so let's go ahead and release the parking brake.
Starting push.
And there we go. So once we get straight, I'm going to go ahead and once cleared,
Cleared
I'll
to
start
start
the engines.
engines.
Okay, let's go ahead. Start engines.
Starting engine 2.
And I just use voice to just showcase that the speech recognition, you can use that to do almost anything. Let's go ahead and move the nose to the left.
Nose left.
Okay, and now we're going to fire up engine 2 here. You can see it coming online, and the copilot went ahead and introduced fuel into the ignition because it was above 20% N2. Let's go ahead and now move straight. Nose straight. We'll keep going to the left a little bit and straighten it out. There we go. Now we'll straighten her.
Nose straight.
And then stop.
Stopping pushback. Set parking brakes.
Okay.
Engine 2 cut out.
Tow bar disconnected. See you on the left side with the pin. Have a great flight.
We'll look for you on the left side with the pin. Thank you.
So you know some static, by the way, in the pushback. That's or in the callback. That's another feature. It won't happen all the time. It's random. Your radio connection at every airport will not be perfect. So attempt to simulate that to when contacting ground, and we'll definitely develop that more going out. Again, the goal is to have some realism and some simulation beyond a first officer simulation with FSFO. And I am just going to really quick check the weather at both here and in Boston, and it looks like a pretty good day at both. Okay. And again, if there's other information that you want FSFO to display, just let me know. It's simple to add. That's why I did these combo boxes, because they're not
Engine
limited.
one cut out.
They're not limited by any form factor, if you will. So I can put as many in that as I want. Okay, so it looks like all the engines, both engines have fired, and we're just waiting for them to stabilize. Essentially, that means we're waiting for the vibration value to kind of match.
All engines stable.
Okay, so since we're in auto mode, what will happen now is the copilot will go ahead and automatically, and this is what I was trying to demonstrate earlier, and I keep missing the opportunity, again, showcasing how whoop, he just said it for me. I'm going to turn that off, so during the taxi checklist, we can once again demonstrate how the checklist works in button mode. Okay. There we go. Taxi lights just went on. The flaps are going to be set to 10, which is what we set in the FMC. The copilot should set his to the legs page, and yours is set to the performance page. That is the correct configuration.
Taxi checklist. Generators.
On.
Probe heat.
So again, now you're going to hear him delete or repeat it in 10 seconds. And that is based on this guy right here, checklist repeat delay. If you don't want to have him delete it or repeat it, you can just simply hit 0. So let's go ahead and turn the probe heat on, and he should move to the next item. A note, when you see things in blue, that means that there is no internal value for the copilot to check. He's just going to call it and then move on to the next item.
On.
Anti-ice.
Set.
Isolation valve.
Auto.
Engine start switches.
Continuous.
Recall.
Checked.
Auto brakes.
Projected takeoff.
Flight controls.
Okay, so now he's looking for move the flight controls. So he's looking for a full left deflection, full
full
right, full back, and then full
forward.
Checked.
Ground equipment.
Clear.
Checklist complete.
Okay, so what I want to do now is kind of demonstrate that, but I'm going to use voice mode. Taxi checklist.
Taxi checklist. Generators.
On. 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 Set.
Probe heat.
Set.
Anti-ice.
As required. Checked.
Isolation valve.
Auto.
Engine start switches.
Continuous. Continuous. Set.
Recall.
Checked.
Auto brakes.
Projected takeoff.
Flight controls.
Checked.
Checked. Ground equipment.
Clear.
Checklist complete.
Okay, so what happened, usually it's a lot smoother than that if you look at other videos, but I've switched my microphones. You can probably tell by the audio quality of this one to the last one using a Bluetooth headset. And for some reason, it did not like when I said on, but it took set. So that actually is another feature of FSFO. It is not looking for a specific phrase. You can use any one of the checklist responses, and your copilot will move to the next item. While we're on the microphone, I kind of want to bring up a few other configuration options with FSFO. Several people have asked me to implement a push-to-talk feature. I'd prefer not to do that. I know there are other Copilot programs that do that, but to me, it's just unrealistic. When the Copilot performs a checklist, he doesn't push a button to talk to the Copilot, so I prefer not to do that. So what this is, this set push-to-talk button, what you can do is configure this to the same button that you have configured to talk to your Pro ATC or to your BATSM controller. And then when you push the button, you'll notice the microphone here will turn black. So while the button is depressed, FSFO is not listening. Taxi checklist. Taxi checklist. Do you see what I mean? So that's the push-to-talk feature that I think is more realistic and that I prefer. So what you can do is you can set a mute button. I have this set to 13 here. I think it's this one. Hopefully it is. Yeah, it is. And you can see what happens is the button then turns to yellow, and now your Copilot is the speech recognition is active, but it's just in mute. So that's what you can use instead of configuring a push to talk every time you want to talk to your Copilot, which in my estimation is simply not realistic. So I'm going to unmute it, and then I'm going to turn it off. So let's go ahead now and taxi out to runway 13. or excuse me, 33. And did I just turn that? Yes, I just did. Oh, okay. So apparently the button I have configured for mute is also configured for my parking brake. Okay. And then you get the load sheet from ground once you depart the.
From the cockpit, this is your first officer. Just want to take a moment to welcome you aboard and thank you for flying with us today. Our taxi to the runway should be pretty uneventful, and we're anticipating an on-time departure. Just sit back, relax, and we'll have you in the air shortly.
Okay, so we'll head on out, and again, RAS and the runway alert and awareness system, was not had to be fine-tuned. So it's fine-tuned in this one. Hopefully, you'll give it another chance and use it on your flights. It's a little better. Still needs more work, as with all the other additional features that are really beyond the copilot. But I want to make this the best value you can buy as far as copilot programs are concerned. And I will never charge for an add-on. And the only thing that I will ever charge for is
Watch your ground speed.
Is for the aircraft profiles, because they literally take months to build. Speaking of aircraft profiles, I'm currently working on the BA 146 from Just Flight, and of course all the PMDG aircraft forever profile. And then I'm really excited about the Bluebird 757. So that will also get a profile. Have several requests for the Mad Dog too. That's on the list. But again, it literally takes months to go ahead and create a new profile. Okay, so let's go ahead, and again, we'll just demonstrate some RAS. I'm going to bring up the thrust and try to fool the computer to think I'm taking off.
On taxiway, on taxiway.
Okay, there you go. So that message also, I heard from a few people that was, even when you were on the runway, was still being alarmed. You should not have that on this version. So here, very, very short.
Ground speed.
Very, very shortly, we should hear the approaching runway 33 from our RAS, and then on runway 33 once we get configured and pointing in the right direction.
Approaching runway 33.
Okay, there we go. Again, that's been fine-tuned, so now you have to point towards the runway to hear the call out. And then let's run the before takeoff checklist.
Before takeoff checklist. Flaps.
Set.
Stabilization trim.
Set.
Checklist complete.
Okay.
Flight attendants prepared for takeoff.
On runway 33.
And there we go. See, much smoother in this version of RAS, and we'll continue to build that out. Okay, flaps are 10, stabilization trend. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to ask the copilot to set takeoff power. And then here we go. Takeoff power.
Thrust set.
We'll get a warning somewhere. We're just going to go ahead and go through.
Speed alive.
Checked.
Everything looks good.
80 knots.
Checked.
V1. Rotate. V2.
Okay. Rotate. And then you should see the, since we're in button mode,
Gear up.
the copilot should go ahead and raise the gear up. There it goes. And then about at 400 feet, you should see heading select come on.
400 feet.
Heading select.
And there's heading select. About 800 feet, you should see VNAV come on. And that's a
VNAV.
VNAV on.
So there we go. That's all the copilot doing that. Let's go ahead and we're almost at acceleration altitude. And then we'll pitch down, and then the copilot should engage the autopilot for us.
Acceleration altitude.
You can do this all with voice too. Pitching down and
Autopilot.
Command A on.
And there's Command A
Flaps
on.
5.
And now the copilot will start retracting the flaps. As you can see,
Flaps
very, very
5.
accurate, right on schedule, as he manages the flaps. Flaps 1 should
Flaps
come
1.
up here.
Flaps 2.
There you go.
Flaps
And
1.
And then flaps up here should come right away.
Flaps up.
There you go. Right on schedule, right where they should be. So let's go ahead and go direct and then use voice to engage
Flaps
LNAV.
up.
LNAV. LNAV.
LNAV on.
Okay, and there we go. Now the co-pilot's going to turn. Let's go ahead and run the after takeoff checklist.
After takeoff checklist. Engine bleeds.
On.
Packs.
Auto.
Landing gear.
Just put the landing gear
Up
to
and
the
off.
off position.
Flaps.
Up, no lights.
Checklist complete.
And now he'll set the engine modes back to off, as well
Watch
as
airspeed.
set his MFD. And we must be slightly over 250. Yep, that's why I watch the airspeed. I'm very, very light today, so that's the reason why. Okay, so what's going to happen now is the co-pilot is going to, once we get to 10,000 feet, he's going to turn off the landing lights and the taxi lights. Oh, excuse me, yes, the landing lights and the runway turn-off lights will all go off, and the taxi lights. That's another configurable option. I have that within my standard operating procedure. I have coupled my runway and my landing lights to yes, as well as my taxi lights. So anytime the taxi lights are on, anytime the landing lights are on, the taxi lights are on, and anytime the landing lights are on, the runway turn-off lights are on. This mimics some SOPs. For example, Delta requires that. Okay. Let's go ahead. So voice should not work on altitude. Let's try it anyways. Set flight level 240. Set flight level 240. Whoop. There you go. He's doing something else. So I'll go ahead and set it myself. Again, altitude was the one that was still needed some work on, so I knew that was an issue. Even before this video. This is a beta version, or not a beta version, but I'm still working on several fixes for this, so I will go ahead and set that myself, but will be fixed on the official release. So let's go ahead and hit VNAV, and then VNAV again,
VNAV
and then the co-pilot should start, the aircraft should start flying again. I prefer not to record this, even though that did not work. Let's show FSFO and all of its bugs and working, so you get an accurate representation of what's really going on here. And oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, there we go. We're starting to climb now. Set heading 228. As you can see, this works all the time now. So does the speed. You should see that as well. It's still the altitude that I'm working on, and I hope to have that done very, very soon. Or it might have to wait till the SDK is released.
Heading.
Which
228.
Yep, see, spot on.
Speed
Whoop.
brake armed.
I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button on my keyboard. And yeah, I had a miss on my keyboard there. My apologies. I'm trying to take a cup of coffee and I hit my elbow on the escape key, which is what the gear is tied to. So my apologies. All right. So again, once we get above 10,000 feet, the co-pilot should. Whoop! I did not hit
VNAV
VNAV.
on.
There we go. Let's get climbing again. 10,000 feet, you should see the landing lights come off, and then the runway turn-off lights and taxi lights come off. And then somewhere between 10 and 11,000 feet, the co-pilot should switch the seatbelt signs off based on that the policy that we had set earlier. Now, normally, since this is a short flight, there would be no meal service on this, or no snack service, because the flight's under 250 nautical miles. But I'm going to go ahead and do it manually just so you can see what that looks like. Okay.
Passing 10,000 feet.
Above 10,000 feet, and there comes your landing lights, there goes your turn-off lights, your taxi lights, all off. And now if we wait just a little while, it's a random number between 10 and 11,000, and there it goes, seatbelt signs just went off. based on that policy.
The captain has turned off the seatbelt sign. You're free to move about the cabin, but when seated, please keep your seatbelts fastened as turbulence is unpredictable.
Okay, and there you go. That's how the new seatbelt policy works. So the next thing that should happen is once we get above 18,000 feet, you should see the altimeter reset to standard because we're flying in the U.S. Again, this is a fixed. This was just a mistake on my part, a bad one. I named the file wrong. The FSFO should have been looking for the transition altitude. So all fixed in this version. So those of you flying Europe, please, I'm going to release this as a beta probably tonight. So just report back if it works for you. If not, I'll continue to fine tune. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, for the sake of time, I'll wait until we get to 18,000 feet, then I'll come back and you can hear the altimeter setting. Okay, as you can see, we're coming up on 18,000 feet. So what you should hear now is the copilot will reset the altimeters to standard.
Transition altitude.
There you go, right on schedule.
Check.
And they're set to standard. I do not have any of my buttons configured, so that's why the speed brake's armed and I can't get it unarmed. So, but that's okay. That's okay. It won't hurt anything in this demonstration. Okay, so the next thing that's going to happen is when the aircraft reaches the designated cruise altitude of flight level 240, you'll hear the co-pilot announce that we've reached the cruise altitude. So we'll be back when that happens. Okay, we're back here. As you can see, we're getting close to our pre-programmed cruised altitude of flight level 240. And once we hit that, you'll hear the first officer come over the speaker. As you can see,
from the flight deck, we've reached our cruising altitude. The flight attendants will begin their service shortly. In the meantime, please keep your seatbelts fastened as turbulence can occur at any time. Again, welcome aboard.
Okay, so there's the designated welcome from the flight deck, and then you can see the co-pilot went ahead and switched his multifunctional display appropriate for the cruising altitude. So while we're at cruising altitude, let's go ahead and demonstrate the new feature now, where you can provide a meal service to your packs. So by clicking that button, that's another bug. So what should happen is the passenger should provide a meal service. So I will have to go and look and see why that is providing you a ground service message not available.
Your flight crew will be making their way through the cabin with complimentary drinks and snacks, as well as meals and alcoholic beverages for purchase with a valid credit card.
Okay, so you shouldn't have had to swap back between the two in order to get that to work. So that's another second bug. We have the altitude, and then we have that one to fix. We'll go ahead and do that. But as you can see, the cabin service is now in progress. Again, there is no limp back or no repercussions for not feeding your passenger. In the next version, there will be. It will affect your overall rating. But for now, it's just there to kind of get you used to that service. So far, not bad. Only two bugs to work on before final release. Okay, so we'll let the cabin service here kind of complete. Or actually, what I can show you is what happens if you hit it again. You can see that just like the PAX simulation, it will be completed in rapid succession if you hit that button again. And there you go. So what we're going to do now is we're going to wait until top of descent, and then we'll be back and kind of show how the descent portion works in this latest version. Okay, welcome back. We're within 18 nautical miles of our top descent. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and run the descent checklist. And during the descent checklist, you should see a couple things. One is the co-pilot should go ahead and program your performance data, and then he should program the HUD. So let's go ahead and run that now.
Descent checklist. Pressurization.
Set.
Recall.
Checked.
And there he goes. He's
Auto
setting
brakes.
your auto brakes
Set.
for us. And then landing data, he's going to go ahead and set right now. And there we go. Flaps 40. Speed is 127.
Landing data.
Check.
And then
Approach briefing.
Completed.
Checklist complete.
okay, there we go. He's setting the ILS frequency. As you can see, he's gonna go ahead and set your course. So we're landing on runway 22 left today. So I think that's 218. Again, this was something that was not working in the previous edition or the previous. So 100% fixed now. The last thing we got to do again is the altitude. Hoping to get that fixed so we can have a 100% working MCP for you. Just going to go ahead and set this to 2000. Straight in approach for 22 left today. So fairly easy approach. Hopefully, since I chose 22 left because it has a corresponding 22 right, just to kind of showcase that ROS is now working well, despite having multiple runways within the same vicinity. As you can see, there we go, 214. It should match this to 2142. 100% again, course speed heading. I'll get this guy fixed. If not right away, then when the SDK is released. But getting close to a pretty dang good PMDG 737 copilot with all the bugs squashed and continuing to add more features. Okay, so the copilot is we'll set the FMC here once he's
set.
There you go, set as MFD. The reason why he set it that is because he detected there was an ILS frequency associated with the runway that you set in the performance page. If there is no ILS frequency set, he will not set that.
From the flight deck again, you've probably noticed we've started our descent. We're not anticipating any delays and expect to be pulling into the gate in about 20 to 25 minutes. Until then, just sit back, relax, and we'll have you on the ground shortly.
And as you can see, he went ahead and programmed your HUD data for you. So elevation is 16 feet. That's all correct at Boston. I do see our third error. He did not do the length. He programmed the runway length for Bangor. So third error that will get ironed out. That's probably just because I have that set in the data volume. That should be relatively easy to fix. So we'll get that all ironed out. So let's go ahead and just see what the runway length is for runway 22, and you can do that by simply going to airport info, and it looks like it's 10,227. So let's go ahead and get that in there. And again, this should be an easy fix. I probably just had it set for the takeoff runway, so it's just linked to the wrong data. We'll enter that. There we go. We'll get that out. So 3 errors that we noticed. Once the button here, when you pressed it, did not work until you swapped. We'll get that fixed. Second error was the altitude was not set correctly via voice. And then the third error down here is the runway was not set in the HUD. Again, I prefer to just kind of show it bugs and all, and then get them fixed. I always do, so I'm not concerned with any bugs that are showcased in a video. Okay, so what will happen now is we're close to 18,000 feet. The copilot should set the altitude to the pressure that it registered for the landing runway. And then after that, between 10 and 16,000 feet, you'll hear various call out from the flight attendants, just kind of to provide a little bit of realism. Now, if you have another program that you prefer to use the flight attendant messages, then all you have to do is come into options here, and you can just turn off the, you'll have to give me a minute right here, the cabin crew announcement. So if you don't want the flight attendants, just flip that off. If you don't want the copilot to address the packs, you can also turn those off as well. So again, highly configurable. You saw it took your copilot a little bit to set the ILS frequencies. You can turn that off too by just setting that to 0. If you don't want the copilot to mess with his FMC or his MFD, you can turn those off as well. Highly configurable. If you prefer realism, what I always recommend is turn off these 2 features. Actually, turn off these 3. Turn off set MCP during pre-flight.
Transition altitude.
That's usually a
Check.
captain's responsibility. The captain will normally do the FMC while the co-pilot does the walk around. So turn these two to off. Also turn the barometer off, manage barometer. That means the captain will go ahead and set the pressure and not the co-pilot. So if you turn those three things off, it will provide you realistic cruise simulation.
Please fasten your seatbelts, return your seats to their upright positions, and store your luggage either in the overhead compartment or under the seat in front of you. The cabin crew will be passing by to clean the cabin and perform their final safety checks.
So there you go. That is the cabin crew message. I think what I'm going to do though is if you have your seatbelt policy and it's set to 10,000 feet, I will probably suppress that message, because what's going to happen here in a little bit, again, once we get between 10 and 11,000 feet, the captain's going to, the co-pilot's going to go ahead and set the seatbelt signs back on based on that policy that we set. So you're going to hear another flight attendant message. And as I'm thinking about it, not really realistic to hear two flight attendant messages calling out the seatbelt settings, or the seatbelt signs are on. So what I'll do is I'll suppress that message you just heard in favor of the one you will hear once we get between 10 and 11,000 feet. Again, really look forward to kind of building out the pack simulation, the cargo loading simulation as we go forward. There is one option I did forget to mention, and that is the new option that you can set your voice, set radios by a simple voice command. So what you would do is go down here in the dispatch. All this will be built out to going forward, and you could set your frequencies to the corresponding entity. So for example, ground, you set that whatever, and then you could just use a voice to say contact ground, and it will set it to the frequency you set. You can hit get frequencies, and what FSFO would do is look at your internal database to try to match up the frequencies the best it can to these values. If you're flying on VATSIM, just make sure that they match what's showing in vPilot or whatsoever. You can see there's there's going to be a finance portion of FSFO 2, so you'll get a flight finance report 2 that's cumulative for each flight, so you can see how much money you're making for your company. The cabin layout too, what that will do is, you saw the passenger manifest. Each one of those will have a seat that you can kind of hover over, and you can see who's sitting where within the layout of the aircraft. That's all coming as I continue to build out these features. Again, the goal is to make this just the best value proposition that you can possibly find. For $15, or I think that's what it is, 15 USD is the maximum I charge on through PayPal. I think it's a pretty good value. But let's go ahead and demonstrate this. You see we have ground here. Let's go ahead and see how that works. Contact ground.
Set.
And there you go. So you see it's contacted ground to the frequency that we had set, which in this case is actually, I'll make sure that is correct. It doesn't look correct. So, whoops, sorry, I went to the wrong menu. And we'll just take a look to make sure that's right. So ground should be 121.90. So we'll have to take a look at that. It actually looks like, so the nav frequency is correct. It did not set the right ground. Let's try that one more time though. Let's try a different frequency just so I can see if that one's the incorrect one. This will work, I promise you, by the time you, even in the beta mode. I'll fix this before I upload it.
We have reached an altitude that requires all electronic devices to be switched off, including video cams, laptops, CD and cassette players. Please make sure all of these devices are switched off.
Okay, actually, he did set the right frequency. FSFO is smart enough to know that this is the ground for your departure, this is the ground for your approach. So what he did was he set it to your approach since we're on our descent. So this is set correctly, and you can now use voice to simply...
The captain has turned on the seatbelt sign. In a moment, we will be coming through the cabin to collect your trash.
So there you go. You heard the flight attendant based on the policy. And I'll, like I said, I'll disable the, or suspend the other one, suppress the other one. because it's just unrealistic to have all those cabin messages. And there you go. The seatbelts, the lights just went on, and we're good. We're good to go. So real quick, getting back to the radios. The reason why that's important is I, like many of you, fly on the VATSIM network, and it can get very, very busy during especially the departure phase when you're trying to configure the aircraft. Then to stop and mess with your mouse to configure the radios. Instead, it's just a lot quicker to say contact ground. And as you can see, it works flawlessly. So encourage you to use that feature, and then let me know if you want more frequency options. I can definitely do that. Okay, guys. So I think we're pretty good with showcasing the some of the new features. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and pause again, and we'll meet back when we're on final for 22 left. Okay, welcome back. So here we are. We're coming up on runway 2211, getting established, and we just got established on the localizer. FSFO is actually managing our flaps for us, so he just set it to flaps 5. And we are now established on the 22 left localizer.
Flaps 15.
Flaps 10.
And the copilot is once again
flaps
managing
15.
the flaps for us. Again, if you don't want him to manage it on approach, you can just go back to that advanced option we talked about earlier, and gear down. And we get an alarm because the gear was
down.
Flaps full.
Flaps 25. Flaps 30. Flaps 40.
There we go. Sorry about that. And then we're VREF plus 5 is 134. Again, with this version and the last version, it did not happen, but your VREF is now captured if you enter it into the FMC. So you do not have to enter that manual anymore. So we look good. We're right on the ball, if you will, for runway 22 left. So what you should happen now is we're going to go ahead and, since we're fully configured, we're going to run the landing checklist. We'll use button mode.
Landing checklist. Engine start switches.
Continuous.
Speed brake.
Armed.
Landing gear.
Down.
Flaps.
Set.
Checklist complete.
There you go. Just ran the landing checklist, and you
Flight
see,
attendants prepared for landing.
Again, FSFO essentially configures everything for you, but I continue to get asked, like, can we do crew simulations or crew coordinated crew ops? And there is nothing preventing you as the pilot in command to flipping all the switches you want. All FSFO will do will go behind you and make sure they're in the proper configuration. So if there's hardware you want to use, go ahead and use it, and then run your flow. So for example, if you want to use your hardware to control the fuel pump switches, do it. And then run the pre-flight flow once you configure what it is you want to configure. And then FSFO just simply looks, and if it's set correctly, there's no time elapse or anything like that. He'll just move to the very, very next item. So the program is as sophisticated or as simple as you want to make it. I'd like to think and like to hope that it's it's enjoyable or practical for both the hardcore simmer and for the novice simmer alike. All right, so as you can see, we're 22 left is in front of us, and what should happen is once we're within 2 miles of the runway threshold and our nose is pointed at it, we should get the ROS call approaching runway 22 left. Again, I chose 22 left because if you can see, there's 22 left here and there's 22 right here. So this is a good test of the runway awareness and alert system to make sure it's calling 22 left and not calling 22 right. Or in the previous version, it was sometime call consecutive. Like you'd hear 22 left, 22 right, which is just not accurate or realistic. So hopefully we get a better test at this time. Of course, there's always some danger. I think if a smart programmer would go ahead and run his test flight before doing a YouTube video, but since it's just me and I do not really have the time, I have a full-time job too, so have to do this when time avails itself. So don't have time to do that, but that's okay. Hopefully everybody trusts me enough to know that if there's a bug out there, I will fix it, regardless if it shows in a YouTube video or not. That's one good thing. FSFO is a passion. It's not a job. I actually enjoy working on this. It's for those of you who like painting or woodworking or just mechanical work out in the garage. That's what this is for me. It's relaxing, and I don't plan to abandon it. Okay, so here we are. We're approaching. We're now 3 nautical miles out of the airport. We're 1,000 miles above ground altitude. And we'll go ahead and we'll get ready. Again, once we're within between 1 and 2 miles here, we should get the ROS call out runway, approaching runway 22 left. And then I'm going to purposely go long too on the runway. Traffic. TCAS warning, just to ensure that the ROS is working as it should.
Approaching runway 22 left.
There we go. The reason why you get it at the 2 mile out is because it gives you time to vector if you're on the
autopilot.
There you go. That's the
Auto
copilot.
throttle.
Automatically turned off both for us. That's a configurable option because we are in button mode. And let's go ahead and silence the alarm. And again, I do not have rudders on my developmental computer, so please no critiquing. This is going to be a terrible landing, and we need to apply some more power.
Minimums.
And then minimum call, we are back on within one. As you can see, we did not get a bad GPWS call out for runway 22 right, so I think we got a good working fix there and a good accurate ROS, but we'll continue to build it out. So you do not want to, we're going to be a little long. Again, the approach, this is intentional, so you can, and we're going to roll out long too, guys, just so you can get an idea.
Speed breakout.
Again, we're going to run a little bit
100
long.
knots. 80 knots.
Apply the brakes here in a little bit because you should get the GPWS call out long
60
landing.
knots.
Or 3,000 feet remaining.
3,000 feet remaining.
There you go. That's what I wanted you to hear. And then, so it looks like ROS all works as it should.
Destination airport. Please remain seated until all docking procedures are performed and cabin lights are switched on. On behalf of the captain and his crew, we would like to thank you for.
So there's your after landing flow, and you'll have to excuse me. I am going to go right through this aircraft just to get to the gate. Again, time is short, and I want to try to fix those 3 things that we identified before getting this out tonight as a beta copy. So as you can see, the copilot is now performing his after landing flows.
Watch the ground speed.
And as we taxi into the airport or the runway here, which we're going way too fast for, we will be penalized for that once we get our score. Excuse me. Okay. So hopefully it gave you a good demonstration of the new version of FSFO. If you're a fly-by-wire owner, I was actually going to use that aircraft as the demonstration because several fixes for that, including a change in how they handle the passenger boarding, because for the fly-by-wire that was moved from the FMC to the EFB, so a little bit changing now and programming for the MCDU, but it should all correspond to the developmental version, including the changes to the flight control checks. The deflections are a little bit different, so all that's been incorporated into the to this version. So hopefully get a much better experience with the fly-by-wire and the FSFO. All right, guys, here we come to the gate here. Again, nothing fancy. In fact, we'll call it what it is, terrible. And then just to kind of give you, so what will happen now is I'm going to set the parking brake, and then since we're in auto flow again, the copilot should immediately start the shutdown checklist, or shutdown flow, excuse me. There we go. So there's the fuel switches off, the seatbelt signs will come off, and then he's going to go ahead and flip the appropriate taxi light, or all the lights. Fuel panels go off. You'll notice this one stays on because he's going to transfer power over to the APU now, which he just did. So we are now in a turnaround state because we're on APU. And give me a few minutes and I'll demonstrate that once we go through the shutdown checklist. Okay, you just heard the cockpit door open. And as you can see, in 13 seconds, the PAX will start the D-board. While that happens, I'm going to go ahead and run the shutdown checklist.
Shutdown checklist. Fuel pumps.
So it wants the fuel pumps to be off, but since we're running the APU, I'm going to hold Control Alt.
Off.
Hydraulic panel.
Set.
Flaps.
Up.
Parking brake.
Set.
Fuel control switches.
Cut off.
Weather radar.
Off.
Checklist complete.
Okay, so there's the checklist. It's all complete. And then this is our automated score sheet. We failed. You heard it several times saying we failed the taxi. And obviously, the approach stability was not good because we went long. So overall score of 85, passed on everything else. I'm going to build these out much more, too, so you'll see more parameters here in the next release as well. Another thing I want to make note, I did improve the landing rate accuracy. So for those of you who are using like Simbit World, you should see a much better, it should correspond to that within a few numeric values. The landing G-force needs to be corrected, too. There's still a little bit of issues with that as well. So all this looks good. It's a good flight, not a great flight. Like I said, I was speeding, so on the taxiway. Let's go ahead and upload that flight data. Let's save the aircraft location first. That's been saved. And then we will upload the flight data. And now we can go into the logbook, and there's our flight data from today. So it looks good. Cumulative score is now 86. So with that out of the way, what I'm going to do is close this. And I'm going to go ahead and get all the passengers off by clicking this again, completing the ops, and then you should see this in successive rate. Okay, now those passengers are deboarded, so we are good to go with this flight. Now, if I had another flight, a return flight, I would simply click turnaround, give it a minute as it clears all the or set couple seconds as it clears all the flags. And there you go. So now we're in a turnaround state. It cleared all its internal values, reset them, and what's going to happen? It's going to run the pre-flight flow, but that's okay. So it's going to be a very abbreviated pre-flight flow, and it's going to pause and give you 30 minutes to upload the flight plan to get ready for your next flight. Of course, if you don't need the 30 minutes, you can just hit Control Alt once you upload the flight plan. And there you see, this is a very abbreviated flight. So again, we have the APU. It's running. If you want to, especially in Europe, depending on how long your turnaround state is, if you're flying Southwest, for example, and you're going to basically stop for 30 minutes or less, probably 20 minutes, then you don't need to start the GPU. But if you're another airline and you want to follow realistic options, you would go ahead and just you transfer to the GPU now, especially in Europe where there's a lot of noise abatement rules within airports. I prefer to keep it on APU for my turnaround state. If I wanted to put it on GPU, no problem. Your copilot will just start the APU during the pre-flight or during the before start flow. So entirely up to you. So what you would do now is you would kind of come in and you would go ahead and set or create another sim pre-flight plan, and then just kind of go ahead and just download it. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to manually input one, and then I'm going to calculate my flight, and there it is. And then I would manually do all this. So that's it. That's turnaround state. As you can see, very much abbreviated checklist. There's no test. Very quick. So hopefully this is a good demonstration of the new features within FSFO. I look forward to building it out and working on new aircraft profiles for you to use. Um, Again, appreciate all their tremendous support. The community is growing rapidly. To be honest, it's kind of outpaced my abilities as we continue to make significant inroads. I will say 99% of the people who I converse with because of FSFO are just, you're fantastic. And I enjoyed talking with you. That's another aspect of why I do it. Encourage you to get on Discord. That's been fun. I'm a Discord novice. I hated Discord until I started using it. And now I kind of find it as just a nice aperture to kind of converse with people and hear their ideas. The ideas of what is improving. As for example, the turnaround state was an idea of a few people, Chris and a few others that are on Discord, and said, "Hey, we really need a turnaround." Well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Let's go ahead and do it. So get on there. Let me hear your ideas, and if I can make this better for you or make it better for your flying operations, I'd love to do so. Okay, until the next time, this will be uploaded as a beta. Please, you'll see a beta thread come up in the forum. Please get out there and post any anomalies that you see before I submit this as a working copy, if you will. All right, until next time, thank you for everything. Talk to you soon.